So now that you've invested about a half an hour in this tutorial, you're probably wondering, how does this apply to me? Well, if you look at the debt list and you look at the last column has some icons that will allow you to customize this for your situation. Again, these debts here are from the book, and it's just an example of what can be done. So if you want to tailor this, let's go ahead and let's delete these debts from the list by clicking on this little garbage can icon to remove the debt. We're going to get to this last debt, and if you think, oh, what did those others look like? If this debt listing is empty and you click calculate, it's going to come back and say no debts to calculate. However, if you go back up to the debts button, refresh, if that debt list is empty and you click calculate, it will put the same debts back in its place. So just to show you, I'm going to delete all of these except for one, and I'm going to click calculate. So now it did a calculation for one debt, and that one debt is going to stay there until I either delete it and replace it, or I delete it and click calculate and then refresh the page, and all of these are back. So if you get lost and need some frame of reference, just delete all the debts and click calculate and it will refresh. But let's go ahead and add some custom debts so that we can see how we can apply this to us. So when I come in here, I'm going to delete these again, and below these garbage cans, these delete icons, I have this add debt button. I'm going to click on that, and it brings up a dialog for adding a new debt. I can name this whatever I want, so I'm just going to say my mortgage. Principal amount of $125,000, interest rate of 4% with a payment of $600. Now these debt categories, all of these calculate exactly the same way except for credit card. So these categories are just to show in the debt list what type of debt they are. Again, the only one that's different is credit card. So I'm going to select mortgage, I'm going to click Save Changes, and now I've added a new debt to my list. And to see how this works, I can just click Calculate, and here's my summary. So in this case, I only have one debt. No roll-up, with roll-up, and what if are all going to be the same. There's no interest savings, there's no month saved because it's one debt. I can do a what if by changing something in here, and that will change the value in the what if column. So let's just look at that. I'm going to add $50 to this for additional margin, and we see just what $50 will do to this payment. I save $13,656.52 and 4 years and 1 month in savings by adding $50 a month to this debt payment. So just right away, this is one way to maybe throw some quick numbers into one of your debts just to see what it would do for your debt plan and your debt roll-up. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to add another debt. So I'm going to say my car for, let's say it's $15,000, 5.5% interest, and the payment is $300. I'm going to select auto loan, save changes. So now I've got two debts in here. Again, I can calculate, and here I've got, with no roll-up, that's going to be the total interest. With the roll-up, I have this much interest and this much interest saved, and again, like the previous part of the tutorial, the with roll-up and the what if are the same because I haven't put in any options. I'm going to add $20 to this, click calculate, just so that we have some different values in here. I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to say, let's look at the what if amortization so that I can see a summary. So here, it's pretty short. I only have two debts, but I have my car and my mortgage. So my car, it has the payment emphasis because it has the higher interest rate, and it gets paid off in month 53. In month 53, if I come up to my mortgage, come down here, I see in month 53 I get the balance of its payment, and then I get the total payment amount, which is the $300 plus the $20 margin. And so that additional $320 stays with the payment amount until the last payment. And so here we see the savings for those values. I'm going to add one more. My credit card for, say, $3,000, an interest rate of 11%, and a payment of $60. I'm going to make it a credit card. Now the credit card is a little different because typically the payment amount is a calculation, and usually it's about 2 to 2.5% of the balance. The payment amount actually changes based on the principal, and that's why when we talk about the credit card payment, it's a little different. It also has a minimum payment, and different institutions have different minimum payments. Mine happens to be $25, so I'll click that. I'll save those changes, and then I'm going to click calculate. Actually, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to click original payoff just to show you the amortization for the credit card before we apply the debt roll-up. So I'm going to come down here. My credit card is the first because it has the highest interest rate. And if we notice that the payment amount, so the balance is $3,000 and the payment is $60. So the payment change is based on a percentage of the minimum payment to the balance. In this case, it's 2%. So as the balance goes down, so does the minimum payment amount. So that's why we have a minimum payment amount of $25, so that once it reaches that minimum payment amount, and here we notice that it reaches that minimum payment amount in month 82, and then it doesn't go below that amount. And this is by design. I guess legislatures have come back to institutions that were making this as low as possible, this minimum payment amount. It would be a couple of dollars for the minimum payment, and you would just keep paying and paying and paying. So the $25 is the minimum payment here. The payoff for the roll-up amount keeps the first payment in the debt plan. So if I click on calculate and I go back to the amortization for the credit card, this does not assume that the payment amount decreases every month. It keeps the same payment. So you don't have to guess at what the payment amount. The initial payment amount is going to be the same payment amount for the entire balance. And that's why credit cards with the amortization schedule and the debt payoff in this debt plan calculation get paid off so much faster. So in this case, this gets paid off in 59 months. Well, looks like the car gets paid off sooner and gets applied to this at the end, close to the end, I should say, of the payoff for the credit card. So now we see that we can go in and add our own debts into the debt plan and run a custom calculation for our debt plan. So this one is the current plan with roll-up. So that's this one without any options. But here's our payoff schedule. So this isn't the payoff schedule for the debts in the book. This is the payoff schedule for me. Hypothetically, if these were my debts, this would be my payoff schedule. So go ahead and go back to the debts page from this tutorial and clean these out. Click on these delete icons and add your own debts. Calculate your own debt plan.